unido, jamás será vencido. El pueblo unido, jamás será vencido. El pueblo unido, jamás será vencido. El pueblo unido,
Welcome to the MimeCast. This is Michael Gene Sullivan. For the past 60 years, the Tony and OBIE award-winning, and despite its name never ever silent, San Francisco Mime Troupe has brought its brand of revolutionary theater to audiences across the country and around the world. Their original musical comedies, and some dramas, but mainly comedies, have tackled social, economic, and environmental justice, civil rights, workers' rights, gender equality, oppression at home and abroad, and how capitalism is essentially antithetical to democracy. Hundreds of artists, actors, designers, writers, directors, composers, lyricists, and choreographers have helped the Mime Troupe inform, entertain, and stir up the working class over the decades. And the MimeCast is a chance to get to know some of them a little bit better. Are with the MimeCast, and this week's guest is an old friend of mine and an amazing performer, comedian, actor, improviser. Guy does everything. Mike McShane. How are you doing, Mike?
I'm all right, Michael. It's good to see you. Yes, indeed. A former San Franciscan. And
yeah.
I'm back. And this is my first, well, not really my first, but my sort of later in life introduction to the Mime Troupe. So that's kind of cool. I keep thinking about that. I go, because I never got near it when I lived in San Francisco, except I went to it. But I never thought about auditioning. I got wrapped up in doing, improv and stuff, but which would have suited it very well. But I remember driving in a van with Ed Holmes, the world's angriest hippie.
Yeah,
my life was in my hands.
Yeah,
and that was amazing.
Yeah, spending time with Ed is like, I don't know, it's spending time with a hilarious demon, where anything can happen. Yeah, but at the same time, anything can happen. Anything fun can happen, or anything horrible can happen. You can never tell with Ed, and they could be exactly at the same time. But anyway,
I think they probably work best like that. Hey, Offset, God love him. Bless his heart.
Yeah, still see him every once in a while. He did an interview with this, and it was really interesting. His time in the Navy and his time at Mills. So there's a lot of stuff that people don't know, and that's what I want to find out with you. So the first question to start with is basically, where were you born and why?
I was born in Marquette, Michigan. I was born in Marquette, Michigan, and I was born in an orphanage. My mother had basically had a meeting with another woman. The mother raised me, and my mother was a Ojibwe from Garden River in Ontario, and she moved to Sault Ste. Marie she was 20 in 1953. Became pregnant with me from either a guy she had a relationship with or not, I don't know. Gave birth to me. While she was doing that, she was working as a care worker at a hospital where my mother, Ruby McShane, was a nurse. And they met and talked. And the family story goes that my mom, Ruby, couldn't have kids because she had something going on with a twisted hip from being a farm girl. I have no idea what it was. It sounded feasible when you're 6, right? So I was adopted for some undisclosed sum. All this kind of interesting, slightly Dickensian stuff, which I think is hilarious, because I was born out of wedlock. On my birth certificate, my status as a child is illegitimate. So it's right there in big letters, making it fascinating. God bless you, Governor. I'm an illegitimate one. I am.
Illegitimate, like Edmund. Yes.
Well, I got a lot of mileage out of that one to discover that in Shakespeare. Like, hey, this guy's speaking right. He's speaking to me, man. No, he's not. It's really good script. Anyway, so I was raised in Kansas City by Ken and Ruby McShane, and they're my parents. And it's only recently I found out some of the information I just top-loaded.
Right now, so when did you find out this information about your birth mother?
When I was 7 years old, my mom and dad did the sort of taking you by the shoulders and going down to your eye level. So you're like, that thing. And they said, I want you to sit on the couch, which I never got to do. So I was even more like, something's up. And so then you're adopted. And I was just like, okay. I had no context.
Yeah. Did you know what that meant at the time?
No. But then the next thing they said was, and you're part Indian. And I thought, that's cool. I mean, that was, yeah. And so I announced that to my friends when I went out. Says we play cowboy and Indian. I'll be the Indian. And they tried to kill me a lot until I kind of went, okay, I'll go back into the house. But it was, yeah. And I kind of rolled with it. I grew up in the Midwest. We had a team called the Kansas City Chiefs. So to my mind, then Native American culture was either personified football teams or go Gophers, or the Arrowheads were very up too deep under the ground in my backyard that I grew up with, because I guess it was hunting land for not the Shawnee, not the Pawnee, but like the Osage, one of the ones of one of the nations that got moved around a lot.
Yeah.
Anyhow, I grew up in a town called Shawnee Mission, so it was all around me, but so I was interested in that way. I didn't feel any particular craving. Once I found I was adopted, then it was like I saw David Lean's Oliver Twist when I was a kid, because I asked a priest what it meant to be adopted, and the Irish priest is also the first dead guy he ever got to see in a coffin, Father Condon, who looked like George Burns, and he had this sort of like, well, that means don't. If you'd not been picked, your mother gave you up for adoption, which means somebody would have wanted you. Now, if they didn't want you and you stayed in an orphanage, that's what you would be, an orphan, and you wouldn't have a mother or father. Okay, cool. Kind of sucked, but I kind of felt it's okay.
But wanted. I mean, it's better to be chosen. Yeah.
Yes. It is. You're wanted. I think, I was lucky. They saw me and I was pink and rosy and cheery, and they went, we'll take that one. Wrap him up.
Let's get him out of here while he's still fresh.
Exactly.
Now, for the two of them, your parents, how did they meet? What were their backgrounds?
My dad was in the military, and he got a job in Concordia, Kansas, where my mother's from Kansas, from northern Kansas, a town called Belleville near Scandia, on the Nebraska border. But they met at Camp Concordia, which is a little further south. And Camp Concordia was originally built to house prisoners of war, and originally they're going to bring in Italian prisoners of war. My father was a quartermaster, and he supplied the food and the housing and the blankets and the construction of the buildings there for them. Then the last minute, it turned out it was Rommel's Africa Corps. So literally, my dad said, and this is this not grotesque, cheery generalization, my father, we had to throw out all the tomato sauce and pasta, so we had to eat like ham and meat, make sure Spätzle and some for the Germans, make them happy.
Yeah. So
the Germans arrived, and my dad's overall thing was that you'll hear a lot. The enlisted guys were like, okay, I'm done. Fine, we'll muster it out, But the officers got off the train and looked at the American soldiers and said, soon you're going to be working for us. And they're like, yeah, okay, Fritzy, keep moving. And so it was fascinating. And there's a lot of, so my mother was a nurse there, had just gotten her degree, had just gotten her RN, having gone to Orange County here down south.
Oh, really?
To do her final training, where I gave it as a wedding gift to a friend of ours. It's a bracelet. She was Walt Disney's nurse for a little while.
Oh,
and
wow.
He said, nice man, a little handsy. But
well, he's an animator. He's used to working with his hands.
Disney looms large because I'm from Kansas City, where he was from. Laugh-O-Gram Studios were on Troost. He had that Midwestern look to him. I draw. My mom and dad got me, because I was an only kid, I got a lot of toys. They got these like drawing charts on how to draw Goofy and Mickey Mouse and stuff. I still have them.
Oh wow.
Pretty scarred out from me, like, hey. Anyway, yeah.
But so she was a nurse.
They met up
was
there
she a nurse
and,
at the camp?
Nurse. Yeah, she got a job as a nurse at the camp. It just opened up, so they're taking anybody. And it was her first. She got back. Wow, look, there's a job, and went right. She wasn't far from her family. It was up in northern Kansas. It was ideal. My dad's a good-looking guy. Ran the quartermaster. A lot of adventures. The Nazi soldiers were fascinating to my dad. The officers were extremely fascinating, and horribly devious motherfuckers. Sorry, horribly devious people. And they would go. They had said if the enlisted men wanted to go and do some work, which kind of counts as like goodie points for them, they get paid a small pittance. They worked with the soldiers who were American soldiers who were of German extraction, and they were old guys. Their sons were off to war, and the guys would come, and the officer said, "Find out where they're from, and sort yourself out. If somebody's from Nuremberg or Stuttgart, if you're near there, you go and you stay. So we can talk to them and do that sort of like, oh, I hear your voice. You're from Stuttgart. I'm from Deutschland, and he goes and milk, bring that stuff up,
right? And
then my dad tells a story. This was going on. He didn't really know it. And about a month later, 4 old German farmers came in. She goes, "Get those sons of bitches off our farm. We're here now. We're Americans. They're talking stuff to us. You know what they're appealing to, and kind of like, and I think they're also like, yes, I miss the country, but I'm here now. And you guys are the guys that ruined it. Why are you talking to me?" Which,
so they're trying to sow a little dissent and trying to get some sympathy from folks.
Yeah. And get some information.
Yeah.
Things, all of that. Yeah. You couldn't fraternize with the American soldiers, or they would get beat up, or in some circumstances, my mom, there was one guy who was killed, a fire extinguisher was emptied up inside him because he did fraternizing. And my mother, a guy was hung in the hospital, and my mother had to run in and get him down and get him mouth to mouth, but I guess he didn't make it. She used to have nightmares about that.
Wow.
So they got out, and the next tour of duty was in Japan. So they were stationed not in Japan proper, but in Okinawa, which is a port city, as it has been historically for the Chinese and the Japanese for many, many years. And they were in Okinawa. My dad helped build the Quonset huts there, helped put in the some of the base. My dad had really strangely dubious tasks. When he first trained in Leavenworth, and that's kind of where they met, and then they went on to Concordia, which is a little bit, 60 miles, 70 miles south. They met at Leavenworth. He was finishing up his quartermaster training. I think she might have been finishing up her training. And his final job was to install the electric chair at Leavenworth State Penitentiary.
Wow.
And then 3 weeks later, take it out. Because they figure hanging's easier.
Oh, jeez. And to keep the electric bill low.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's all about the environment, really. Yeah, really.
Exactly. Yeah. That green,
how thoughtful.
Green mile. I like to live with that.
Yeah, really. Yeah. So just out of curiosity also, so where were your parents from? Were they first generation, second gen?
My mom was from Kansas, from northern Kansas. Last name was Stafford, and she was about the second, maybe third generation from England. Methodists, abolitionists, farmers from England.
Oh wow!
My father was Irish. My dad was born in 1910. My mom in 1912, and my dad was Irish American from Minnesota, from St. Paul, from Minneapolis, actually. And he grew up. His father, my grandfather, was a railroad brakeman, a staunch Union man.
Yeah.
And really, like with the pipe and the newspaper going, I don't believe what those sons of bitches are doing. That kind of stuff. So then another time, my dad saw Babe Ruth play baseball. That's how old he was.
Wow.
And so they adopted me later in life, as you figured it out. And there's all that kind of stuff. Families, they tell you things you like, and they look at, so didn't you know that? I go, no, I was 5 or 6. And it was some weird family secret that you guys decided and like bury. So it's not even like, you're not even my family and I got family secrets. Why not give them to me at all? I kind of,
yeah, they're just secrets.
Just secrets. It does uncomfortable things. It was a kind of Kansas upbringing. I had a grandmother who lived in Belleville, or Scandia, an old house, white clapboard house with barley twist posts, and it was small. And I slept upstairs on a feather bed. And when I stayed there, and I was a city kid, and all my nephews were country boys, and they made sure I had a good time. They were like held me down when I was like 6, and they rubbed milkweed.
Oh,
Can't say milkweed without it happening.
still makes you sneeze. That's effective.
And they said they were ghost seeds in the plant because that tiny little black dot seeds with the feathery material in it, and they'll bury into my skin at night, and they'll come out ghosts. And I guess I'm some good in acting because I'm gullible. In fact, I'm gullible myself, right? But I so believed them because they were real earnest Midwestern, like, yeah, they're going to get inside you and then they're going to come out. There was a lot of leering and they go, wait a second. I was like, so I went home. I went back to grandma's and couldn't sleep. And she next day was like, oh, I told her, right? I broke down in tears. And she's like, yeah, land sakes, I'm going to talk to those boys. And gave them a hiding, sort of a verbal hiding. And they backed off for a long time, but they laugh about it now. I don't see them that much. That family's kind of, of course, we're good guys. Well, it's an ideal life. And I lived my mom and dad, my dad was a union man and very proud of it. And from the military and then into the post, and he was a mailman.
He's a mailman, yeah. Huh.
And I think that's the reason because he had a quadruple bypass when he was 88. It's been zipper club, but he got to be 96. So he knew his 8 years were borrowed, but he never smoked, never smoked cigarettes. I think my mom said he smoked a pipe and a mustache for 3 weeks. She was like, nah.
Didn't work out for him.
No.
Well, one thing about you always get your steps in if you're a mailman.
He did. He walked all the time. He would stop at a Catholic church. He knew a Catholic. He raised Catholic. We were Catholic. He'd go to the church and watch As the World Turns and eat his sandwich, the soap opera. My mom would watch it at the house, and then when they come home, she'd come home. They'd have something to
talk about it.
It was kind of they were very. They were people of their time, and they were very sweet people. And they took a chance on me. I felt my dad was really thought it was kind of cool is the wrong word, not his vocabulary that I was indigenous or Native American or Indian, as they say, that was a good thing. It was a good thing, part of the country, part of this place, without going into too much woo-woo.
Yeah.
But he did take me to a big powwow at the National Guard Armory, which I saw recently when I went back to Kansas City. I'm looking to see if I can find the book that he gave me. It was a book of Indian crafts and lore. Now problematic because it's basically, the faux Indian or I say faux Ojibwe, of doing it. But I was 6, 7, and I thought it was fascinating. That was fascinating. I went to a summer camp because I'm the only kid. I was spoiled, and I dressed up and had leg makeup, my mother's leg makeup, and everybody laughed, and I just tanked. I went out, they laughed, I tanked. I went back next year in Concord with a pothole doing a ventriloquist act. I just got a little distance between me and it, and they could insult me and I could respond. Because I was watching on Sullivan. I went, yeah, okay, cool,
We got that. We understand. Yeah.
Right, that worked, and it worked for you. It took you off the hook a little. And anyway, then I went to this powwow where all these nations with full regalia and ceremonial paint, and it was really cool. And I was really psyched. And I broke away from my dad and went running around behind one of those marquee tents where a group of Native Americans were getting ready, Indians were getting ready. And they're Southwestern, very that look.
Yeah.
And the guy was putting his ceremonial paint on one of those mirrors. and he saw me, there, because I'm like this tall. I'm looking at him. He turns around. I didn't know what to say. So I went, "You look funny." And he got up. And I'm like, and he got down like eye to eye with me. Like, again, as an adult, getting eye to eye, you're like, what the oh. And he looked at me and goes, "You know what, kid? To me, you look funny." And I was like, I screamed and ran off like, "Dad, I don't want to go. I want to go home." Years later, I realized, obviously, I thank him. He did me a favor, did the turnaround on me. Now, you know what it's like to be the other.
Yeah.
He didn't berate me. It wasn't mean.
Right.
It wasn't mean. There was no, it wasn't any in it. It was just like, I think he knew what to do.
Yeah. It probably had come up on some level before, and having that this is just a fact. And knowing also that that's going to impact you in a way that you say a fact to grown-ups and they might fight you. You say a fact to a kid and they remember it decades later, that it's still impacting.
Totally, dude. Yeah. No.
Now I wanted to ask, you said that your mother was a Methodist and your father was a Catholic. So
yes.
How did that work out?
So my mother did what a lot of women did. She acquiesced. I don't think my mother was a staunch Methodist. I think her stock, northern stock, like from, come on, it's northern, like near Nottingham. And they're very flinty. With the people I met when I've toured in the UK, they're a solid people. They're not heavy north. They're not like, "Hey, how you doing?" But they're very pragmatic. And Methodism is an interesting religion. It's an interesting offshoot of Christianity. My dad, since she was marrying him, she had to become a Catholic. But my best friend who I grew up with, his mother was Methodist. She's actually not ADR, but she's like from the Plymouth Mayflower stock. She's like my second mom. So my best friend, his dad was Polish Catholic. He said, "You got to be Catholic." She went, "Okay." But both of them went, "Do you want to go to church today?" "Nah." Both my moms smoking, making breakfast. But Mrs. Micah and my mom was like, "No, honey, we'll have pancakes for you." That was her religious duty, was to have pancakes and sausage for us when we got home, which I don't eat a lot. I didn't like maple syrup when I was a kid. I love molasses. I was nuts for molasses.
Yeah.
I just laid like stuff on. Anyway, yeah. So
your father was more devout?
Yeah, every Sunday, church, altar boy, Catholic grade school, Catholic prep school 1 year, then public school after. So I was, my mom, and I did kind of remember it. This is not devout like Dad was. My dad was not an unremote, emotionally man, but he was of his time. But the first time I remember him crying, as I came home, I had a toy chest, and I drew an alpha and an omega and a sort of a remedial Lamb of God with a little cross on it, like it's on our altar at St. Agnes. A lot of sheep in St. Agnes, right? And I got like a bath towel, laid it, got a bath towel to make a part of my cassock and stuff. And I got like a fruit glass, and I showed him how I was celebrating Mass. And I guess he just went, he like went, because he had nuns in his family. His head aunts were nuns in Minnesota.
Right.
They were stone Irish Catholic. So much so that they didn't discuss their culture. He was a generation of Irish who came to the United States. So my great-great-grandfather was from Clonmel, Northern Ireland, where he was asked to leave because he was teaching Irish to the Irish. But no, you ain't doing that. Nope. So he came to the States, and then he widowed his wife. He was a widower, and he met a woman, Agnes Ryan, and they came together. And my Aunt Agnes's grandfather was a pugilist named Glory O'Brien. And I got a picture.
Oh, that's a great name.
Bald. He's got bald with a huge beard, and he's like a little dude, like Bob Hoskinsy, but he's got big, huge hands.
Hands like ham hocks. Yeah.
Truly do. Was like, I was like, wow. So it's a very interesting family from my dad. And,
Yeah.
he had a brother, Gordon. And they grew up, my dad went to military school for high school. He went to
really?
It's no longer a military academy, but it wasn't. It was the Cretan military.
Yes.
Not Cretan, Cretin. So when I was about 16, I was like, hey, Dad, I was a jerk.
Yeah.
I was a jerk to my father in more ways than one. But I would go, Dad, I didn't want to say, well, so are you playing like the shitheads or the dipshits? What's the I was trying to find a football team after goal. The morons, that was it.
Yeah.
Playing the morons, or the Cretans playing the morons this week? He's like, oh yeah, you think you're funny? Yeah, you think you're funny? You learn a couple of words. And I'm like, he would give me like this thing, he's like, my dad does the sideway guy thing, like, dad thing, like, all right, no. It was just to crack me up. He wouldn't get a full word out. He was like Archie Bunker, where he didn't like some. There's this Irish wine. He go, oh God, he was. I observed him because he was a really interesting dude.
Huh.
But yeah, so
So you went to Catholic school,
St. Agnes Grade School, Mar Hill Preparatory School.
Mm-hmm.
I lasted a year. I got kicked out for setting the dorm on fire and selling liquor to the seniors
simultaneously.
I was trying to get a 3 in there somewhere, like shipping drugs.
Really?
It was before my time. Here's something funny. When I did Robin Hood, because I never graduated, but I got a call from them. Anyway, we'd like to invite you over to their factory to be or a distinguished alum. And I went, I didn't graduate, He goes, oh, that doesn't care. It's like the old Irish joke. Guy brings his dachshund into the church. He goes, I'd like my dachshund to be a Catholic. He goes, oh no, sir. We don't let dogs join the Catholic Church. That's ridiculous. My dog for $8 million. Oh, how long has he been interested in the church in the Vatican? But so we went. Karen and I went, and Karen, it was like the biggest. She said it was the biggest panoply of weird male energy she'd ever been in, because it's all priests.
Yeah, that is the translation of the word Catholic.
Yeah. And so they're old ones, like with the bib being fed. They were very not like a lot of young ones. They may have changed a little bit. A lot of priests, and ones I went to school were my teachers. Yeah,
and they were still there. Wow.
Yeah. Both of them. The one that said, actually, the one guy, he was a brother. Then he said, my dad, if he were my son, Mr. McShane, I would tie him to a tree and leave him there. And Father Bruce, who was an effete, delicate man who had catechism classes, and strangely enough, the only students that he had let do the Catholic catechism class were, without exception, so pretty. And he was very arch. So when I came in, he goes, so McShane, at least you got to be a priest, even if it's in a movie. And I went, you're such a joyous soul. Why don't you come out of the closet? Have a good couple of years.
Yes, before you pass away.
Before you pass away.
That's what God would like.
Yeah. God, exactly. Anyway, we did.
So now you were, when you were in, you're acting out in prep school. Were you like part of a group of people, or were you kind of a loner acting out? And why do you think you were?
Because I was mouthy, and I had a friend, who's still my friend, went to CMS in Kansas City, named Joey Menina. He became a computer programmer. Strangely enough, this is God's truth, Michael, he reminds me of you. He is so fast and so bright and so ahead of things that I learned a lot more times going, yeah, okay, that's okay, cool. I have no idea what he's talking about. Okay, we're back. And now I got it. And it's like boom, 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 and it's never stopped. He's still that way. He's writing he's doing a website for foreign language, teaching children foreign languages.
Wow.
It makes a little money. We're both of the age, has had great health recently, but it's good to see him. Anyway, yeah. So I lost track. I'm sorry.
No. So, but I was asking you about acting out. So you were saying, like, you were, as you're acting out at school and stuff. Why do you think you were doing that?
I think because I wanted to get attention, try to figure out who and what I was with people.
Mhm.
I was large, not that large, but I did get a bit of that fat boy stuff. I didn't like a lot of I was nervous because I didn't like a lot of the male culture I came up in because I was big. I was supposed to be in the football team. And frankly, the first time I ever heard the word fat faggot, it was addressed to me by my football coach when I was like 11, and his son was kind of a brutal guy later on in life too. So he was a friend of mine. So it was the kind of world of men I didn't like. My dad was like most man, like that guy thing was like, I got in a fight. I came home and he goes, get out there and finish the fight. You got to do it. Or, we're going to have to deal with a guy like that, So I did, but it wasn't like, in fact, so much Joey Menino wanted to pick a fight with he got prompted to pick a fight where we were like 10. And he came over to the house and he was like, he started throwing rocks at the window, little ones, to get me. And I'm like, what? He goes, come on, we're going to fight. I go, I got dinner. Can I come out in an hour? He's like, okay. And he understood how he just went home and forgot about it. And it was like next day, he's like, hey, how's it going?
Why was he supposed to fight you? What was?
Oh, people get you involved in mean stuff. They say he says this. It was like somebody gossiped, and so I read DC Comics. He read Marvel. He read Mad Magazine, so we're both very facile with that stuff, and we trade magazines, and we were both interested in geology. So Kansas is the highways are continent, which is striated rock of limestone and granite, and fossils. So for me, that was very curious. When I was a kid, I really wanted to be a geologist. I saw Journey to the Center of the Earth with James Mason.
Yes.
And that was just like, boom, that got me. Giant lizards with the fans.
Yeah.
And
the big mushrooms, the ocean under the sea.
Exactly.
I love that film. Yeah.
Exactly. It was Bernard Herrmann's music, so those big like chords.
Yeah.
And
Pat Boone.
And Pat Boone, who I have I have artificial hips. I went to the doctor to get them. And when I was in the waiting office, Pat Boone was there ready to go in. Because this guy's like my insurance early on, psych after I could do that. And he was there. And he looked like a ice cream sundae with caramel sauce on him with feet.
Wow.
He was just this brown dude and white dude. And I didn't know what to say to him because it was him. You could not know it's him.
He's right there. Yeah.
And instead of going with like love letters in the center one, I really enjoyed you in Journey to the Center of the Earth when you fell out of the tree with the sheep. He goes, oh my goodness. And he was off on Anecdote Village. I was like, go.
Just give it to me.
Run, memory steed. Yeah. So I was into that, and he was into that, and it was kind of an ideal life too as a kid. My dad took me to a rock show at the same place. I had the introduction to the Turnabout Mirror with the Indian dude.
Yeah.
And it was kind of cool. And then I think I was a willful kid. I was a spoiled kid. And my mom and dad looked very differently. My mom made like 95, 97 pounds, dark hair, brown eyes. My father looked like Joe Biden, but like a small guy, small Joe Biden. And I was very different looking from them. And they tried in their own way to put sort of influence and pressure on me to lose weight because they thought I was overweight. I'm a soft guy. Long story short, I look like my genealogy. I found out much later. But there was a lot of early on. They wanted to correct. I have bowed out feet. Not bowed out feet. I like penguin walk.
Yeah.
So they gave me shoes to correct that. I had to go get special shoes. And also there's a lot of care and caution. Since I was adopted, they would have caseworkers come unannounced to my mom when I was like between like 3 and 5 or 6. Stopped when I was about 6. And that really, I think, made her neurotic about making sure, And so I would like be, running around like I had to get dressed up literally, be like, hit it.
Oh, right. Yeah.
You're happy.
You're happy.
You're happy. Yeah. And I was. It's pretty. I probably didn't have to do any acting. I was very happy. But it ended when the caseworker had a big, like cream colored beard. I don't know this. I was just told later by my dad. and it was snowing in Kansas City, and we had a white pug dog. And Mom went to open the door because it was like, should I be ready? And she opened the screen door in the front of the house. The dog shot out from between her legs, out in the snow, onto the driveway where it was white, on a white snow driveway, and this car pulled in and just squashed it.
Oh.
And of course, my mother screamed. I think she said, I screamed. Like, Mom screams, oh, you scream. So my dad said, yeah, both of you were crying, Well, my dad was like, he goes, yeah, it's awful. You had to lose the dog, but I'll tell you, that social worker never came by again, and it was worth it.
All part of his little plan. I see. Yes.
But
social. They assigned another social worker. Time to get another dog.
exactly. But she would call. I guess Lady goes, yeah, she just called and go, how is he? He's fine. Good, click. So I guess they put the kibosh on it, as they say in the Midwest.
Yeah, really.
And it was, so they were very different than me, and they tried to get me on diets. And, my mom would say to me, like when I was about 10 or 11, like, no woman will ever love you because you're fat. And so I wanted to lose weight. So, because, women will just love you if you have money then. My dad was reading the paper going, that's right, boy, they'll lay down like a rug for you if you give them a hot meal and a place to live. And I was like, wow. And you don't look at your dad. If you look at your dad, you look at your mom and going, did she ever say this? And she would look over like, my mother would do what I call smeeking. She'd speak and smoke at the same time. So that's right, honey. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh, okay. And she corroborated by the only woman in the house.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And they're like, okay with that. I remember
very weird people. They're very unfettered in some way.
Well, it's weird how that comes out of how people, I'm not sure how it is nowadays, but, when parents trying to give some advice to try to be helpful to their kid, this is the language that they have to express love and care, which in retrospect seems so insane. When I was like 9 or 10, my mother sat me down and looked at me and said, you have a really bad temper. And I did. And I do, actually. A horrible temper. And she said, yeah, someday you're going to prison for murder. And I was like, okay. So my goal after that was to not murder people. And that has been like the underlying thing in my life is all this stuff may be going on. No matter what happens, make sure not to murder anyone. And you were talking
when you
about
hook it, when your kid hooks you, you go,
yeah.
Oh, that's a template by which when you had to go, when Mama put me in the corner, go, you'd have to wait like 5 minutes. And suddenly I was like, I must now know when she says I can come away, that is 5 minutes. I'm taking this down, right? Time is based on that now, not on a clock or anything.
Right. Yeah. You're like, that's the baseline. That is that.
I interrupted you. Sorry, what, buddy?
No. I was going to say, when you were talking about your friend, it reminded me also when I was about that same age, I had my best friend, and every once in a while we would almost get into fights. And then one day he came over and he was really mad at me for some reason. And he was like, we've got to fight. And so we started fighting in our basement. But every time we would get into a position where I like have his head in a headlock and we're punching each other, or we were in a position where our arms were in a certain way, I would start dancing with him, and he was just like, what are you doing? And I was like, oh, I thought we were dancing. He's like, no, we're fighting. So we started fighting again. And there were other people who were crowded around to watch. And I'd get him in a hold and I would then turn his face up and turn to them and go, the best of friends. And he stopped fighting me after that. He was like, you're just too weird. I'm not going to fight. And I was like, good, we can just be friends from now on.
Yeah. This is an engagement, but not the one you think it's going to be.
Right.
That's great. You basically subvert hostility. But I think being insane that way really, doing a weird insane move makes people go, what the?
Right.
It's
because
like
of their expectation. Like you said, your friend comes over and he's supposed to fight you and doesn't even know why. It's the culture and his other friends and all of this stuff. But then the next day it's just gone because it wasn't real in a way. It was a cultural thing that put on, and how different things would have been if it hadn't been dinner time. you know?
Totally. Yeah. I'm kind of glad. We always laugh about it, that one thing, when I went to high school, I got some really pink knobbly bell bottoms with big cuffs, that era, right?
Oh,
They
I
were
had
like,
those, yeah.
yeah, they were pink, but they had like red, blue, and yellow. It was really cool looking, like crazy. And I was a little like, oh boy, they're hip huggy. So I had the belt on. And this guy who hated me because his name was Michael McShane, and he was a greaser. He was like a biker guy. He was a young thuggy. He didn't like me because we had the same name. So he'd always give me stuff, whack me on the head. And he saw me in these. And I was also friends with his girlfriend. She was beautiful. And she was just nice, a nice person. And I liked her. And he didn't like that. And so he saw me in the hall and he was, hey, McShane. And he like threw me up against the wall and he goes, look at the nice pants. I'm like, he goes, you look like a fag. I go, yeah, well, say it. And I go, no, just say it. Say you're a fag. I'm like, no, say you're a fag. And I just suddenly went, I'm a fag. And I did like just this operatic thing. I was just like, and he was like, he was like, he like put me down like, dude, man, you were like, it was like that. And I was like,
yes,
oh.
It is
go over the building.
Right. You change the world on people in a way, and they are completely baffled, and it nullifies. And it's almost like it shows them, by being more ridiculous than they are, it kind of shows the ridiculous of the situation to them.
Yeah.
All of the emotion and everything strips away. It's like, what are we doing here? This is all optional. Never mind. I was thinking about when I was in middle school. There's a kid who came up to me, and I don't know why he hated me so much. He just did. He just hated me. And he came up to me one day in the yard and he said, you think you're hot shit, don't you? And I said, no, I do not think I am hot shit. And he's like, yes, you do. I was like, no, I do not think I am hot shit. Do you think you are hot shit? And he's like, yeah. And I said, I agree with you. You are hot shit. He never got it. Everybody, he just like, yeah, that's right. And he walked away. And I was just like, that was easy. I just humiliated him in front of all of his friends. I called him shit to his face. But he was so in his world that he couldn't expand away from that and get any objectivity. And yeah, comedy gives you that. Yeah.
You do. You see it when it works, you are grateful it does.
Yeah. Otherwise, you got to run fast.
So I was, let's see. So
you were in prep school.
I got kicked
out. Yeah.
And that was, then early on, he said temper. When I was 2 years before, then we had a car accident as a kid. Partly I was responsible for it, distracting my parents. My mother had to have surgery and they botched it on her neck. So she lived with a neck brace and an arm brace for the rest of her life. I think I let Darvons. It was not a great time. And there was a kid there, a kid who didn't like me. I don't know why. He always picked on me because we were friends with other people. And he was picking on me when I came back from school. I'd been out for like about 2 weeks after the wreck. And he said, where you been? And I go, well, so he's like, leave me alone. He goes, why should I leave you alone? Because my mother's in the hospital. And he said, I hope your mother dies. And that was it. I grabbed him and put him into the wall a couple of times to a chair and drug him through the chairs, desks, and tried to shove him out a third-story window. Fortunately, my best friend pulled me off of him and a nun. And then I got the sort of, everyone was like, he's crazy, that thing. So I was angry and I was crazy and I was violent to my mother and my father. And they reached their apex with me and made me award, because they'd taken me to doctors and stuff, and they spent their own money. They didn't know what to do with it. It was a family thing. We didn't figure it out. So they put me in a state mental institution called Osawatomie. Only a few years before, still the Kansas Home for the Insane, like a Warner Brothers cartoon placard. And I was there for 7 months, and I was given a lot of drugs. Not ever threatened with shock therapy, but we gave coffee to people that had electroconvulsive therapy. We were in the adolescent unit, and on Saturdays, they would take us to the adult unit where they were giving electroconvulsive therapy, and we would give them cups of coffee, which they'd always go, just give them a half a cup and put some milk in it to cool it off because your hands are trembling when you come out. And that was the first time I saw that, and donuts, which I would stash. And we give them coffee and donuts. And this guy was there. We came up and he looked at me and he leaned into me and he had such a gentle voice and went, "Where am I? I don't know where I am." And I was like, oh. And I went back in the bathroom, just cried and shit. There's a little bit of that. There was a guy who was there for an adolescent unit. His name was Doyle Wimpy. God's truth. He looked like Ed Harris with like a Bam Bam haircut and really wide shouldered. And he'd blown his grandfather's head off with a shotgun. So group therapy, we had like 6 of us and guy Dr. Cabanas, who was our guy. And we'd talk. Turned out his grandfather molested him continually. And he finally got to be like 13 and went, you know. And of course, then, you know, this is 1971, 71. All these things, there were gay people in it, you know, and all that, and all adolescents, we're all figuring ourselves out. And there was a little violence occasionally. There was some craziness, obviously. And because it's the state of Kansas, Michael, the great state, ad astra per astra, we had the greatest perks. We got free tobacco. Yes, we're adolescents, and we have free tobacco, as much top tobacco and black walnut pipe tobacco as you could use. Or you could buy your own cigarettes. And when you're skint, came in handy because there was a guy named John Allen who was 13 years old with a full back of Robin Williams body hair and a beard. He was a hayseed of the old school.
Yeah.
He might have been really autistic, but kind of gentle. And he just kind of didn't really talk with him, going, in a big belt cigarette roller. And you would give him a penny a cigarette, and he'd put the tobacco in a big cylinder of it, man. Put some in there, take a paper, because this is machine. You roll it up part way, then you tuck, get it up a little more, and then you lick it. God's truth, dude. You would pick it up and you would lick it and go like, and you're like,
I'll be smoking that, yeah.
So you make them, and you walk over to the AIDS booth, which looked like a control tower in an airport. It's like 3 fastened pieces of glass with 4 people in there pushing buttons, writing reports. And you tap on the window and you walk over to a wall. There was a heating element. It would heat up, and it was in front of it was a spun asbestos plate, semi-clear, crystalline, because it's a crystalline fabric, rock. And you can kind of see that. And you put your cigarette up against it and you light it. And it's like you would smoke your cigarettes. Or if you're John Allen, you had a corncob pipe. That's truth, dude. Corncob pipe full of that black walnut tobacco. And he'd crank himself and put it up against there and like, make noise. And they'd press it. He'd be like Curly Howard.
Yeah.
He was say a huge plume of it. It smelled, actually, I remember it fondly. It smelled really good.
Huh.
So I met girls there. I met boys. I was trying to figure stuff out. It was a weird world. I got put into isolation twice. So the prep school I went to, Eddie Pete Zubowitz. So we played around, jumped around, and he actually saved my life. We used to run around the top of our dorm and skid on the rocks if we go over the edge.
Yeah.
And I almost went off and he grabbed me. He was a really cool guy, really nice guy. Unbeknownst to me, his dad was the head doctor at the Osawatomie State Mental Hospital. So when I got in, I found that out. And I was like, and one day, and they tell you could only go so far, you can't cross this street. There's no big bar, unless you're not locked up. At night, your hall is locked, but your bedrooms are open. You go to the bathroom and stuff.
Okay.
Like a door. So I just don't know what to say. I really don't. That's Pete. Then where's Dr. Zubowitz's house? They pointed to it. And I walked across. As I walked across, I could see the curtains. They knocked on the door. I knocked on the door, nothing. And I saw some curtains do that. I was like, oh, okay. And I walked back. And when I got back to the adolescent unit, they were waiting for me. And they gave me an ass full of Thorazine, knocked me out for like 3 days, and put me in isolation, to get up, go to the bathroom, it really burns. That stuff really burned. But I got
Was that because they felt like you were trying to escape, or you had just,
Yep. Because when I knew it was going to happen, when I didn't know it was going to, when I got there, I saw what they grabbed me. I was going to go to isolation. And I was like, and that's how you do that.
So you were saying, so both with your parents and just there's a lot of stuff going on. Did you feel like, in my case, I was having a temper? Did you feel like a specific thing you were angry about, or was it just like, the world's pissing you off?
For me, they're so old. The world's pissing me off. I wanted to connect with somebody physically, emotionally. I wanted to be loved. I was lonely inside. I could play and tell jokes and stuff, and I had a good time. It wasn't like, Pagliacci bullshit.
Yeah.
Well, I had my friends. I made them laugh. They made me laugh. It was good, but the guys were some of the boys who grew up were not great guys, and I wanted to be accepted. So you hang out with people for different things, and we had some rough kids in the neighborhood. A guy who was my friend, who was a pretty rough guy, he's gone now. We joined the army together. That's another story. Anyway, so after 7 months, I got out. Kind of luckily, I got pneumonia. And
that sentence doesn't happen often. Luckily, I got pneumonia.
No, in a way, it was because, again, the system messed up. Sorry, the system messed up.
That's okay.
And I got sick. And I told my mom when they visited, I felt sick. And they, anyway, I got a fever. I was knocking on the AIDS window. It was the last thing I remembered. I'm like, and I guess I fell over and passed out. They're like, whoa. So they take me up, and I got a fever, 104. I come to consciousness while there's a priest in there setting up the extreme unction, the last rite stuff.
Oh, jeez.
And I kind of maybe go, and I passed out again. And so I was in the hospital. I don't have any explanation for this next thing. But there I am. They gave me this blue bathrobe, and I look like an old coward. I was like, little like fake little like monogram on it. So I've always been a little idiot that way. I love dressing, get me. And I remember I knew I was leaving after they had me change bedpans there for the older patients. And this guy, I was he touched my butt. Basically, he asked me if he could touch my butt. And I went, yeah, okay. I swear to God, I was like, yeah, whatever, and he like gives me a cuppage. And then the nurse saw it. And she goes, what's going on? And we're like, he touched my butt. And they were like, and the paperwork, and I was out real quick. I just remember that. Yeah. So a little touchy, and then, my mother was fierce about going, I will sue you, because she was good at that shit because of what she went through at the accident.
Right. Yeah.
She became a very angry advocate. And so then I went out, and then I was at, high school with that history with me, and I couldn't meet to leave. And so when we graduated in 73, I got drunk. There's a little median strip with my buddy John Lyons, who was my childhood friend, and we convinced Jared to join the Army in the buddy system after a bottle of Bali High, the delicious fruit wine with extra added island kick. Some of the best decisions in the world are made with that wine, sir.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And I joined in 1973, joined the Army. And I told my dad, I basically did to piss my dad off, to freak him out. He did. He literally did like a cake, because he knew. And he goes, whoa. And he did a thing where, oh, now you're listening to me. He was like, look, let's talk. And I was like, oh, okay. And he said, look, you got to do what you're going to do. I didn't have any prospects to go to school. In fact, my mother said, there's an Indian scholarship she applied for. When I was like 14. I wasn't in the mind to do it. And also went, that's not me. I mean, I knew then, I go, if I take that, that's something some other guy who's like had to eat shit on a res for X amount of, he may be the first person who gets out. So I had that tendency, liberal. That's kind of a Catholic thing. You do see yourself as part of it does enforce an idea that we're all one in God's love, that kind of stuff. You see the situation, you go, right. Anyway, I joined the Army, and I was an entertainment specialist and an illustrator.
Really?
I was
So
an
had you
entertainment
been studying illustration all this time, or you just?
I drew, and I drew. I first got in as an entertainment specialist, which meant I cleaned the NCO club at Fort Knox, Kentucky, and booked some like weekday acts. And that was it. And that was in the theater, and they had a theater club with all the officers' wives. And that's when I first did a play on stage, and I was bringing down the house, it was Don't Drink the Water by Woody Allen.
Oh yeah.
And I was like the corrupt, inept KGB guy.
Uh-huh.
And then I was dealing pot to the priests, dealing pot to the officers on the side. So I had a good thing going.
Right.
Then I got busted again.
Yeah.
I had bad luck. In fact,
you're not a very good criminal. I think that is the really.
I'm not.
Yeah.
I got the Rudy Giuliani thing going.
Yeah, really. Sweat. So have you been?
I got busted by
Go ahead.
Kentucky. Go ahead.
No.
I spent one night in jail. The officer brought us, my captain, Cowboy Bob Enyart, brought me in, and he said, you three swinging dicks, I'm going to talk to you. And he chewed these two guys out, chewed me out. And when I went to him, he goes, come here. Close the door. He goes, you're that fat kid who just gets almost over the fence stealing something and you get caught. That's who you are. And I was like, yes. And he goes, the top dog, our sergeant major, really goes, he does not like you, and he's got a case of the ass. And he'd like you to go back to Kansas the hard way, via Leavenworth. I'm like, oh, God. He goes, I'm going to do you a favor. I'm sending you to California. And I was like, what? He goes, yep, I'll send you to California. And of course, I was like, thank you, sir. He goes, don't thank me. Wait till you get to California going. And I was like, what? So I get stationed in Stockton, California, which is like Kansas with palm trees. And I got off the plane. I'm like, what the hell? It was a depot, Army depot, the small military part and a large government contract part. So there are only like 10 soldiers. And I was an illustrator because I learned sign painting when I was in Fort Knox. So after doing the whole like entertainment thing, I got to have a hard skill. So they said, you want to learn sign painting and illustrating, statistical drafting with tapes and screens from like the 70s. So I learned that, and I learned how. The good thing is I couldn't do it now from arthritis, how to sign paint with a maul, where it's like a padded stick, and you lay your arm across and do that. Cassius Clay Sr., his father was a great sign painter.
Right.
In fact, our station Fort Knox, you can still see signs painted by Cassius Clay Sr. on them.
Really?
And people try to steal them, and they're like, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. This is like 74. Yeah.
So you were saying, so you did Don't Drink the Water, and that was the first play you'd done. Had you done any performing before that?
I auditioned for high school, but the gal was Yvonne Sutter. I'd auditioned for comedy roles, for school plays, and kids who didn't pay attention to me before started talking to me, and they were laughing during the auditions, and I could tell they weren't laughing at me. I was doing something with it, and that worked. So I never get in. So finally I asked her one day, she goes, because you're a dirty little hippie kid, and I don't like you. I was like, okay.
Huh.
Yeah.
And, nothing you've described so far makes you sound like a hippie.
Well, I had a huge head of curly hair. I kind of look like a Jonah Hill hippie. If Jonah Hill was a hippie, or a cross before the mustache, Yeah, I was this doughy kid with a big, huge head of hair, and I looked a little more, I don't know, to them. It's Kansas in the 70s. Anything was threatening.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. That's true. After all the stuff that had happened in the late 60s, they're probably just like, yeah, you're not on this side, you're on that side, just because of the hair.
Just because, and I wanted to be a hippie. I really wanted to move to San Francisco. That was one of my dreams as a kid. I wanted to come to San Francisco where the hippies were, because I had the bell bottoms. I was spoiled. My parents let me do that. Me and Joey Menina, the first political march, he was there. I went to it and I saw him. I go, hey, and he was like, hey, man. We both were marching in a Vietnam protest, and he ended up going to, God, he was 15. He ended up meeting an older woman at Temple Slug Head Shop, and he lost his virginity down in the basement. Because I literally remember seeing him that afternoon. I went, You look different. He was kind of like,
suddenly you have a goatee.
Relaxed.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he was like, like a recently released animal. He was
Wow.
a happy man. Anywho.
Okay, so you're
so I want to be that way.
Stockton. Yeah, you're that close to
Stockton.
San Francisco. You can almost smell the fog. But
junior college. There was a junior college called Delta College, and it's just gotten a boatload of state money. And they had built a purpose-built auditorium shop. And I signed up because I could GI Bill, I could get in, and I took art, drawing, and applied arts there. And first, I wanted to work with being set design because I could do that. Because you had to learn everything at the school. They're kind of like a fame with a small f. They had all this stuff because if you want to act, you got to learn lighting, you got to take a class in lighting, all that. So it was great, and I got to do some really cool stuff. They had big follow spots at the auditorium. I got to run follow spots for Rabbi Shankar, arc with carbon arcs that you crank.
Oh wow!
To keep those like two carbons at light, and you have to swing low. So I got to be big man on campus there. I got in a bunch of productions because of my size. They're like, we need somebody to play the dad. Yeah, you come in here. Put some gray in your hair.
Yeah,
I did Cat a Hot Tin Roof there the first time.
Oh,
it was an experience in Stockton Civic Theater, which is a small civic theater. So I got my taste of theater there, and it was successful at it. Then I decided around 1980, I got to get out of here. And I auditioned for summer Repertory Theater in Santa Rosa, which was a summer theater. And I got that with Gina Farrell from ACT. She was in it,
Huh.
And so I went there and I got paid to play Pseudolus and Forum, Otto Frank and the Diary of Anne Frank, and a barrister, an old barrister and witness for the prosecution, no lines, but we'd always make up. And Jim Ponder, who worked at ACT, was there making wigs and stuff. I met him. He taught me how to make wigs. And that's where I learned sort of like thing about theater where he's saying, we got to make judges' wigs. We got to make 8 of them. He's like, okay. So the canvas strips on a dummy, on a head canvas head mold. And he said, those are very expensive. So I got these. And he opened up a huge box of tampons. And we hot glued the tampons like the rules of the hair. And then he showed me how to underpaint and overpaint to give them more depth and a little striation and make them, and from the stage, they look great.
Perfect. Yeah.
That kind of stuff where you're like, oh, why isn't the set painted here? He goes, nobody will see it. All that.
So the practical side.
The practical thing made me happy because it stood against, my father wasn't critical, but it's like, it's show business. It's going to be light. And it's, what good is it? But there's artistry applied to it. And this is when I was a kid, there's a movie called Man of a Thousand Faces with Jimmy Cagney.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
And so I come from, not an overt blue collar family. My dad was a professional, was a mailman, but his father definitely. They were of that era, like lunch bucket ale kind of guys. And he goes on the movie set one day. Cagney goes on the set one day. There's a list of wholly inappropriate, like fakirs, assassins, pickaninnies. It's a list. They're like, wow. And he looks, and he's like, oh. And he looks. He's got the blue jacket. Looks like a laborer. Looks like a guy working on a bridge. He's got a pail with him, like his lunch. And he looks at it. And he says, "This is very romanticized." He sits down, opens it up, and it's his makeup. And they had all the other actors just like they were doing Scarlet Pimpernel. They were all like an elegant finery and stuff. They're smoking cigarettes and talking. And as he focuses down and starts applying the makeup and doing all stuff, they're all like a bunch of Steve Kieran's. Steve Kieran guys go, doing that thing. And I kind of got that, it's not blue collar, but it's a craft.
Yes.
He's busy. He's doing something. He's not just being, it's something active, and he's not dressed up like them. And then it does a crossfade into hey, where's the two assassins? And he comes into frame like without patch, but Fendi, hello,
Right.
And he goes, hey, hey, and not Cagney, Cheney. He goes, yeah. And so he gets the job. So it's all of that.
Yeah.
And that I remember that influenced me as a kid, wanting to be an actor, because you could, with makeup and stuff, and you had to do stuff. And still to this day, it's a craft to me, because when I did ER, I had to be a guy who's been living in the street, and they had scabs on me, and these open sores and scabs on my face. And the guy that did the makeup, it's a picture of him in the trailer at Warner Brothers. He's doing the makeup of Bette Davis and Now Voyager. He was really old. It was really cool. And his son was taking over. And he did this 3 different pots of paint, one reddish, one pinkish, one white, very light ginger red for the open. And he got done. And he said, let those sit for a second. And he went over to the fridge and took out 2 pieces of bread. And he had a toaster. He stuck it on the toaster and put it on high, turned a vent fan on right behind it. And they finally popped up. They're all burned and variegated, brown, black, all this. And he crushed them up in a dish. He took them with big powder puffs, electrostatic energy in them, picked them up and put them on like scabs. So toast.
Yeah.
On ER. That was that. So then I did Doctor Who, and I was sitting in the tent. It was raining. I was sitting in the tent with the Welsh makeup ladies. And I just went by April nothing, I go, have you ever heard doing it? And they were like, they got their notebooks out, and they're like, whoa, and they all wrote it down, because they went, no, I never thought of that. Yeah, of course. The minute I said it, they were like, yeah, of course that would work. And they were like, they loved me after that. And of course, then, I'm helpful. I'm part of, I give these ladies had some information, and it's a craft, when Chaplin toured the United States with Carno, Charlie Chaplin, his understudy was Stan Laurel. And so when he found Hollywood, he left Laurel, and they taught it to you by rote, It's the one in the movie Chaplin where he's hanging out on the balcony as a drunk. He does a routine. He does all that, right? So years later, I found out there's a guy, he's an old British clown who moved to the US, and he was Stan Laurel's understudy, and he learned it. So when Richard Attenborough did Chaplin, he said, is that written down, that act? They go, no, it's not written down. It's handed off from clown to clown. And they found him, and he goes, oh, yes, I'll do it. And he taught Robert Downey Jr. that. He taught it to him. There's no writing it down. I sit with him. They built a rudimentary thing for him to step in and out of a pole to grab. And goes, put your hand here. He goes, depending how do you feel your body weight, that kind of shit. He was like, and I think that's what I love about what we do. Mm-hmm. It gets passed on, and you finesse it. On Broadway, if you take over a role, like you're the B team, in the Stars League, you take over, it's that, but it's that you don't get that. It's like, you go here and then you go here. And what about, no, you go here. When I did La Cage aux Folles, I had to mark every spot, even though the person was very different in shape and height. And then after a while, when they relaxed, they're like, yeah, okay, but the stage manager's like, you're like, wow, okay. Whereas clowning,
well, I've known people who, as clowns, it's like if you're replacing another clown, you're coming in as your clown. You're not trying to be that clown. You have your personal clown, which is now in this space. That's and you true. Have to hit it for lighting, and you have to hit it for a reaction. But besides that, this is a new clown, and everyone else has to accept this. Yes. And which has this huge amount of freedom, but it's also a huge amount of responsibility, because then your clown better be able to deliver. You have to justify the existence of your clown.
Wow. Yeah, that's it. That's very.
But I think the thing you were saying about the craft going to doing summer stock versus doing college, because that shift, college, when you've got a whole semester to do this, and the budget of the organization doesn't rely on the ticket sales for this show. You're doing this in college, and in those days, the college drama departments were actually funded. So you're doing the show, and you're there to learn. And you don't even have to think about that part. You don't have to think about publicity. I got to make sure to do all of this stuff. Then you
Right.
get out and suddenly you see the tricks. Like, oh, we're building this thing. Like you were saying, we don't have to paint this side because nobody's going to see it. Nobody's going to see the back of this costume. Nobody's going to see the back of the chair. We have to figure out where we're going to put our energy, rather, because we don't have a whole semester, and we got to do this as cheap as possible and get butts in seats so that we'll have a semester, we'll have another season, and learning that. And not enough, a lot of students never get to that point. They have a hard time making that shift. And maybe because you're already thinking, doing illustration and doing all of this other stuff, of knowing what the process was to get from the quantum leap from nothing to something, that not every actor has, which can make.
I was lucky when I did form, good director. That helped a lot. I've had really good guides. Especially with comedy, because I would go too fast. You got to slow down, break it down, and don't. I think that comes from you just have a lack of confidence in you. And go, if I do it really fast, get through it, they'll all laugh and they go, what was it missing? It's like, no, you got to see everything you do, and you'll learn how to do that and hide it. And if you got to, I think both, Ariel, you and I are very funny. We can be funny. Physically, we're funny people. I've seen you do stuff that had me howling when we did San Francisco Shakespeare. And I didn't really appreciate it when I was at San Francisco State. I went there, and that's where I met Proops and Tom Terrell. Do you ever know? Did you go to State at all? Yeah. Remember Tom? Terrell? Yes. Oh, and he cast me as Polonius, and I was like, no, I want to play Claudius. I want to be that guy. Yeah. And I said, no, I'm tired of being funny all the time. I went down to his office, I'm tired of being funny. The funny guy goes, shut your mouth. People would give the right tester to be as funny as you are. You have the gift of really good timing. And that's a good actor, too. So don't display it. This is not easy to play. So you're going to do it? I go, yeah. It goes, good. Here, have a shot of whiskey. Okay, thank you. He did. He did, Yeah. I know. He paid my rent 1 month.
Oh, really? Wow. So how did you get from? How did you get from? So you're at Santa Rosa doing.
Santa Rosa. Yeah. So after it was done, I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't want to go back to Stockton. I got bit. I'm like, And so David Frank and a couple of guys said, we're going to San Francisco State. We're going to enroll. I went, okay. Yeah, why not? I can get it. I got the GI Bill. All right. There was no reason. And I did throw all my stuff in the back of a truck with them and went. And it's always wove itself on me. I have a lot of visual, and I'm very that way. And we got in at night, and the fog had come in, and that one big tower, it looks like a ship on top of the hill as you go through the Bay Bridge, that was sitting on the fog with the moon, and it looked like a ship on the sea. And I was just like, yeah. And that's it.
Wow.
Again, I bought it.
Yeah. Hooked.
Yeah.
Hooked.
And I went to State, and I got my GI Bill right away. And that's the first time I met Proops. He was part of College Bowl, and he was the San Francisco State team, and they're playing Yale. And I remember seeing it on TV when I was a kid, going, "It's cool, see it live." So I went, and they went, "And I'm from Yale," and all the guys like Animal House are all like, they came out and go, "And now the San Francisco State," and it opened up, and you could faintly smell cannabis. And Proops came out wearing an oversized white tux jacket with those. Remember the Madonna black bracelets?
Yes.
You would wear, and candy red glasses, candy red like specs, and I was like, and a quiff, and I was like, what the hell? He looked like a chicken, And then he proceeded. They sat down. Reed Wallman, who else I know? Pat Conroy. The guys are all Faultline. He was our tech. They smoked. Yeah, they smoked them. And Greg was especially troops worthy. That's sort of as like Kitty Kacha. Anybody knows that. It's like, I hate him. I hate him. I love him. I hate him. He's really bright. I'm threatened, and yet I'm compelled to get to know him. And we had theater history class, and we hung out and a lot of that, right?
Yeah.
And we got along. And so that and then Loman and my Brian there.
Yeah.
And those guys and Reed, they had a group, and then I got improv for them. So I was doing theater, and then they had me do one show one night of improv called Faultline. And I had a good time, but it wasn't like I got hooked then. That went away. I wanted to go to Berkeley Shakes in San Francisco Shakes then. And then that came together, and they asked me if we got a space in 9th and Market, Faultline at Lips.
Oh, yeah.
And do you want to do it? I went, yeah. And I got involved. And just then Keith Johnstone's book had come out. So a lot of those guys did the Spaghetti Factory, where Robin was and Debbie Durst. And that thing was a bit Second City, because that was the committee. They were a Second City offshoot. But then this theatrical book by Keith Johnstone, Impro, and sort of like longer form potential, like status work, because the Britain thing, and more you could, it was, and that, I think that was my introduction to it with the group, and we were lucky. We found a good club, and nobody got hurt.
So what did you feel like the draw.
You're looping. There we go.
Oh, you still there?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, my computer said I'm going offline, and I don't know if it did or not. We'll see. But so I was asking about stand-up versus improv.
The city, and you're a native of San Francisco.
Yeah.
You're a very rare fish indeed.
Yeah. Still here, yes.
But in the sense that there was that last bit of the coffee shop comedy clubs, and the other cafe in particular,
yes,
had that vibe, and the basement club, because I was working at a warehouse during the day and doing that at night. I was taking off a lot of weight because I was also on this fasting program. Again, my upbringing, I kind of got involved in that, and it wasn't until many years later, like much older. A lot of this is your head. This isn't what you are. Your identity, right? Is you're taking other people's info and putting it inside you. Anyway, I was just really learning a lot fast in writing with Greg and Reed and Brian and Sandy and Kathy and Nathan, who was our keyboardist. It was a merry group, and I worked at a copy shop and did all the posters for the group, all the drawing, and that was easy. But it was a great place to work, and it didn't feel, because I improvised a couple of stand-up routines when I was there, because I was just stupid and I thought I could do it. And David Feldman, he's a really brilliant writer, brilliant comedian. He came to see it, and he saw me do it, didn't know me, and he asked me what have I done before. I've done the Holy City Zoo, and I go, no, I haven't. And he goes, so what is that part of your set? I go, no, I just made that up. And he looked at me and went, fuck you. And he walked off. He was really mad at me. But I told him later, the next night I came in going, well, get me. And I tanked. The next night I went, I wasn't prepared. The first glow of ignorance, you get through it. And the second time go, oh, I've got this. Oh, ow. I just pulled my headphones out of my ears.
Oh, but
you've got it. And then bang, you're dead.
Yeah.
You're dead.
I'm hilarious. No, I'm not.
No.
Yeah.
I saw Greg, I saw it turn into more commercial stuff, because I went to him and Dana Gould were doing a club called Rooster Teeth Feathers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And that had a soundtrack. You'd sit there, and all of a sudden you'd hear this like, bum, 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 bum. Welcome to Rooster Teeth Feathers, San Carlos's premier comedy club. Bum, 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 bum. It's a 2-drink minimum. It was like, what the hell? Controlled lighting, like soffit channels in the roof,
Yeah.
going up and down. It's like really, really wild. And I was
Wow.
like, it's commercial. I knew then, oh, this is where it's going.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of happy with San Francisco. The vibe was perfect.
Oh yeah, I remember seeing you. Valina and I went to see you guys Faultline because I was in Brown Bag at State with Stephanie.
Yes.
Yeah, Stephanie Hunt. And so she was
Yeah.
like, I'm in this group. And I felt it was important for us to kind of support each other in the department. And so I was like, yeah, sure, I'll come and see. And I saw you guys, I guess, at the theater South Market. And I was like, this is great. I had never seen group improv before. I'd seen a lot of stand-ups, but I'd never seen anything like that. And they were like, and these people all went to State. You just missed them. I was like, damn.
Yeah.
You guys were like 2 years before me.
It was just it was a great place to go, State. Look at the great talented people there, man.
Yeah, really. And that you guys had all come through there and created something so interesting and so unique. There were other groups in the city, but they were, they were just like the senior groups. And to have this group of super brave people just out of college was inspiring and impressive. So we would come and see you all the time. We were like, oh, I think I remember coming to a show and just kind of going, hi, I was with, I'm a friend of Stephanie's. You guys were like, okay. And it's like, all right, yeah, well, never mind. I'm in the audience. Never mind. Forget it. So now at that point you're doing, you guys are doing Faultline. And when did you start looking at local theater? Because that's another thing, is that not all the people at State, a lot of theater there, it's like, oh, we're going to Broadway, oh, we're going to New York. But you started auditioning for local theater. So how did that shift happen?
I started I ended up doing the one act theater with Simon Levy and Steve Seagull. And they had Brown Bag Theater, their version. Lunchbox Theater.
Yeah, right.
And I did a J.M. Singe play. I did Frog Prince, David Mamet. And I just did a bunch of these. And then Simon cast me in Taco Jesus, a late night, an evening play, where I played a guy who had a taco, that thing. And it was a big hit. And I just kind of got, okay. And I think some people, Joey Carlin saw me. And recommended me for a TV ad as a biker, funnily enough. And then I got cast in Berkeley Shakespeare Festival. So I got there with Dakin. It was me. We were apprentices, me, Andre Brower, and Annette Benning were the apprentices then.
Wow.
And I did a season or two, then did San Francisco Shakes where we met. And then went back to Berkeley Shakes. Then ACT happened. Right. Kind of right before that. And then Berkeley Shakes did Henry 4-1 with Jim Carpenter, the Julian director, Lopez Marias.
Yeah.
And that was like my big shot. And luckily, because I had Jim and a great group of, we're all great and liked each other. It was really, I remember doing the tavern scene where I'm pretending I'm the king and stuff. And it was just everybody, we were rolling with, we were ad-libbing slightly. It was really easy and it rolled so well. And Julian did such a good job of making it very accessible, no big concept. And so I was lucky. And we were at a lucky time. You had the Eureka, you had Tony Kushner doing his stuff.
Yeah.
You had Oscar and Tony Taccone and Richard Side and Richard E.T. White, all of it, Albert Takazakis. Then I got into ACT. Then I got asked to join the company by Ed Hastings. Because before then, Bill Ball wouldn't have you unless you went to New York or L.A., right?
Right.
You had to go, do time.
Yeah. And, or you had to go through the company. When Valina and I got into ACT, it was like, and the people who were there, they were like, did you study here? I was like, no, we auditioned. So there was a big shift that happened, I think, after Ball's time, where there was more focus on talent that had come up through the local theater. Yeah. What do you have on your resume? And it's not to discount the work of the people who had studied at ACT, but they were just like, instead of us using our students and graduates and New Yorkers, we'll use our students and graduates and locals, which was I think really was this great bloom of folks, like you were saying, because
It's a great mix
now,
for us.
I mean, people I talk up to now in the city who are actors, they don't even recognize what I'm talking about when I say this is what it was like in the 80s and early 90s. How many theaters there were, how many small places you could work here, you bouncing from theater to theater. There was just so much going on. And, and how much we've just got lost that now as these theaters that have just been priced out of the city, priced out of the Bay Area, just couldn't make enough money. Yeah.
Even Cyril Magnan was an unrepentant capitalist. He loved the arts, and he bounced money into there,
Yeah. Well, I guess we're just about out of time.
Craig.
I know.
And now I'm coming back to do a play.
And now you're coming back to do a play. I mean, I know when I've done these interviews, it's always like, I tell people it's 90 minutes and they're like, it's not going to last that long. I'm like, trust me, 90 minutes is not nearly long enough. So I'm going to interview Sharon Lockwood some point this week.
There you go.
And that's going to have to be chapters,
It really is.
Yeah.
It's like, aren't you the person that wrote the Bible? Yes, we are.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Chapter 1. So maybe during, at some point while we're working on Red Carol, maybe you and I can do another thing to kind of talk about all of the other stuff. And again, a lot of it is just so that people can, finding how somebody gets from being a little kid just to getting on stage is such a journey. It is such an epic. Then it seems like this impossible journey. And so just getting to that point is so important. And then what happens after that, once you're on the boat and you're like, okay, now who's in? Oh man, I'm on the crew. I'm the captain. That what do you do after that is a whole other adventure. So hopefully, in the next month of rehearsal, we'll be able to find some time to talk again.
I'd love to. Buddy, thank you so much. Yeah, let's get it.
Okay,
I'll see you around, man.
Michael. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the MimeCast. The MimeCast logo was animated by Adon Gonzalez. The song you're listening to right now is El Pueblo Unidos by Sergio Ortega, arranged and performed by Dred Scott.